Starting off the reviews of the books I read in 2009 is The Death of Ivan Ilych, or Ivan Ilych. My apologies to the Russian speakers out there, by Leo Tolstoy. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and I wrote this about it early that year. This book totally surprised me. I started off trudging bored through the Russian obituary-typed early chapters, but when the author begins to recount the life and times of his Ilyich and eventually moves into the process that becomes his death, I realized that for my dollar, Tolstoy is the single greatest accountant of humanness that I've read. He inspires thought with, stokes emotion from, and precisely observes his fictional characters in a way that will have any reader sensing autobiography. The subject matter here, however, is death and dying, so the artistic leap into the philosophical was mind-blowing for me. How can someone be so attuned to the slow spiral of death without experiencing it? Even in such a short novel, I was hugely impressed by Tolstoy's acute exploration of a life, its effects, and the much larger question of the human condition. Now, in this, I think this review has a little bit of hyperbole, but I was really moved by this book. It seems like simultaneously tragic, but also kind of a salve for the way that we think about the end. And it's hard, it's tough, but real. And it feels very true. It's profound in that way. And I think it's great. I wouldn't have ever thought to read Tolstoy. There's no other Tolstoy books in any of these reviews that I'm going to talk about, but this particular book, it's extremely short. A lot of what Tolstoy did were some short stories too, but it's really powerful. Talking about those first chapters, it's kind of almost like reading the newspaper or reading the Bible. It's so sort of detached. But eventually it gets into this point of really sort of connecting with, like I talked about here, the human condition and humanness in a way that is really powerful. There's one of my favorite podcasts is put out by WNYC in New York called Death, Sex, and Money by Anna Sale. Anna Sale is the host and the sort of the creative mind behind the podcast. And it is such a powerful podcast because she says with those 3 topics, they're the 3 things that we all think about, but don't talk about nearly enough. And so that's one of my favorite podcasts. And this book connects to that death part too, because so much of us are always thinking about it. And this is such an interesting and profound exploration into a character and what this character goes through as he approaches death. So 2009 started off with Tolstoy, and 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, The Death of Ivan Ilych.